Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Step Up to the Mic. This is the place for aspiring and established speakers to take the stage, deliver their talks, and bring them directly to you, the listeners. Today's featured speaker is Aleksandra Ceho. Folks, she's an astrologer royale. She does astrology for leaders and innovators and entrepreneurs. She's a master of astrology, martial arts, and Hermetic philosophy. She's a teacher of astrology and tarot at the Modern Mystery School, and she teaches at the Warriors of Light. She also has an ebook called The Star Powered Resilience, which I know you're going to hear more about. Folks, please welcome to the stage Aleksandra Ceho.
Thank you, Rory. It's an honor to be here and to have this time to share and connect with you and with all the listeners as well. Oh my goodness. Well, I started my own journey with astrology actually when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And it was actually how I learned how to read. My grandfather was an amateur astrologer, and I used to go and spend time with my grandparents. And every time I was there, I would be going into my grandfather's bookshelf and start reading his books. And from his books, I discovered more about myself. And it helped me to cultivate an understanding of myself and the world around me. And that really helped me to develop my emotional intelligence as I grew up. And so I discovered very early on that astrology isn't just about fortune telling, it's about understanding human patterns and potential and being able to truly appreciate not only yourself, but the people around you in your life. And so I often ask people, what if you could recognize the archetypes that were at play in your life within yourself and also within others? And what if you could learn how to work with them instead of against them? Within every one of us is actually many archetypes, and they are constantly at play. I often compare each and every one of us to being one of Shakespeare's plays. And these archetypes within us are the main characters in your play. And depending on the nature of these characters, they can create aspects of conflict or they can create synergy within you that leads to greater success, uh, greater relationships, love, peace, and harmony within. And so when we recognize and work with the archetypes at play within ourselves first, and then within others, we actually have the ability to begin um, creating harmony and appreciation for these natures. So when I speak about archetypes, I should define this for you. Archetypes are universal themes that show up across all cultures, all psychology, and all forms of storytelling. And so, if, for example, I said that someone was motherly, everyone would generally recognize certain qualities about that person. And so, if I said that someone was motherly, you would recognize that this is a compassionate person, that this person is caring and giving and affectionate. Why? Because the mother archetype exists across all cultures. Similarly, if I said that someone was more artistic, there are certain traits that you would associate with that person as well, including innate creativity. And so the archetypes are also deeply connected to the astrological wheel, both the planets as well as the zodiac signs. And so every planet in every zodiac sign is an archetype that reveals patterns of behavior, motivation, growth, as well as function and dysfunction. Every archetype comes with its gifts, its traits, its abilities, as well as its lessons that it needs to learn in order to thrive in this world. I often tell people that when it comes to astrology, you come in with a perfect nature and you're trying to adapt it to an imperfect world. And as you learn the strengths, as well as the weaknesses of the archetypes that you're working with, and how to synthesize the different archetypes within you, you will find greater keys to peace, as well as greater function across all areas of life. And so we want to recognize these characters within us and outside of us so that we can cultivate a greater appreciation. And so what I'd like to do with you today is I'd actually like to share a little bit about each of these groupings of archetypes because I wish that I had time today to go into 19 different archetypes, 7 planets, and 12 zodiac signs. Unfortunately, we don't have time for that today. But let's actually just start with the elements because the four elements are an incredibly deep as well as old typology, and they've been worked with for many centuries actually. And so, for those of you who know your zodiac sign, we're going to start with the fire signs. And so that would include Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. And if you don't know your zodiac sign, I haven't really encountered anyone who doesn't, but if you don't, you can always just Google your birthday in and it'll let you know. So, our fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, they contain that passionate essence. They are the initiators, they are the spark, they are the performers, and they are the explorers. That fiery archetype is also that of the warrior. And so the fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, are all about taking that passion and applying it externally in life. Their role is to inspire, their role is to initiate, to create action. And their role is also to stand up for what they believe is right. And so these archetypes, and if this is your archetype, often they take a little bit of heat, which is kind of ironic because they are fiery. But they take a little bit of heat because they like to come at things with intensity. And so they take all of that passion, and when they learn how to focus that passion, they are incredibly productive. They are courageous. Their performance is top notch. And also, they are the explorers. And so they're willing to ask the questions and to make the journeys that others may not necessarily be willing to make. So, when you have one of the fire signs that is a potent part of your chart, that passion and the exploration and application of passion is something that's incredibly important to you. Now, passion can be a bit of a double-edged sword with these archetypes because when that passion is misapplied, or perhaps we could say applied a little too liberally, especially towards others, um, the challenge that the fire signs face is that others often feel pressured by their passion. And so one of the key lessons of the fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, is to learn how to moderate that passion so that you're not burning yourself. Number one, they are prone to burnout, and also burning others. And when you learn how to maintain that fire, and you could almost think of it like maintaining it like a candle flame, right? And when you learn how to maintain that, what you will find is that you are more a source of inspiration for others rather than a source of pressure. And this also applies to yourself. Very often with the fire signs and the initiator, the performer, the explorer, it is actually their own passion applied against them that becomes a humongous source of pressure in their lives. And so learning how to moderate that passion and learn how to say no to themselves sometimes, they will find greater peace and also they will be a lot more well rested. Now our earth signs, and that is Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, they are our builders in life, the healers, as well as the strategists. And earth is a very tangible, practical element. It cares about the details and making sure that things are done thoroughly and properly at that. And so the earth signs on the surface can seem kind of boring. I mean, who really appreciates being known as the builder, right? But The builder, the healer, the strategist, all of these archetypes are incredibly necessary to ensure that we have the abundance that we have in the world. And so the earth signs and the earth archetypes are about fostering that abundance for themselves and for others. And earth is a pragmatic, stable, and repetitive sign. And so the builder, the healer, as well as the strategist, they all work to ensure that abundance is generated and created. And one of the things, that we know about abundance is that it comes through repetitive action. And all of these archetypes are appreciative and hold strength in that ability to endure repetitive action in order to ensure that abundance is generated and created. And so, of course, we want to appreciate the earth signs in our lives because they are the ones who fulfill that diligence and that duty. And that conscientiousness is a huge characteristic of their archetype. Now, that conscientiousness can also work against them because these archetypes can also hold aspects of perfectionism that get in the way of their work as well. And so, learning how to be a little less judgmental of their actions and their efforts will actually take away a lot of mental burden and mental stress from the earthy archetypes because their conscientiousness dictates that if something's going to be done, it needs to be done well and or perfectly. And so as they learn how to be less judgmental and accepting of their efforts and to appreciate what they create, they will find that they are much happier. Now, our air signs, we have Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Air is the element that exists in between spaces. And so it is the element of communication. And so our air signs, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, they are messengers, diplomats, and visionaries because air, it doesn't separate the spaces. It actually seeks to unite. And so the air signs, whether that's you or important people in your life, they are seeking to create synthesis and unity. As an element, air is actually quite mental. And so you will find that these airy archetypes, the messenger, the diplomat, the visionary, they're all very intellectual and they like to think about things and they experience their world from the mind. And so, very often, these archetypes come in with a highly powered mind, and learning how to discipline that tool is incredibly important. Air signs are amazing communicators. They love others. They love establishing connection. Very often they're quite non-judgmental and welcoming of others because they appreciate that exchange, that flow of air that goes back and forth when we communicate with one another. And and as having that appreciation, they need their mind in order to engage that process. And yet air signs also are notoriously nervous, actually. So air signs, because they experience their world from the realm of the mind, they tend to take everything there. And so they also tend to be hyper thinkers, overthinking, and they tend to be anxious as well because they need to think about everything that they experience. And so that constant mental stimulation is a source of creativity and joy, but it can also be a weakness as well. And so when the air signs learn how to control their mind and to think of their mind as a tool, I often compare the mind to being a pen. You never let a pen dictate what you do, Rather, you tell the pen what to do. And this is the lesson of air signs, is to be able to tell their mind exactly what it needs to do. And when they actually learn how to do that, they establish calm. Air is a turbulent element at times. For those of you who've ever flown on a plane, you understand that turbulence, right? And because air is turbulent, it needs that calm. And meditation, mindfulness, all of these kinds of practices help air signs to uh, reverse the role of leadership so that they are in control and not their mind. And when that happens, you will discover that they are incredibly calm, joyful, and creative people. And so, whether that's you or someone who you care about in life, uh, appreciate that mental agility because it is their strength. Just try not to overuse it because then it becomes a source of illness as well. And last up here, in terms of this very brief introduction to the archetypes, we have the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces as well. And they're the nurturers, the alchemists, and the mystics. And water signs are all about the emotional experience of life. They govern over the realm of relationships, and they also govern over the realm of self-awareness and self-reflection. And so the nurturer, the alchemist, the mystic, e- all of these have a little bit of an introspective nature. And that introspection is a necessary element because the realm of emotions, if we think of water, water can be smooth and flowing, but it can also crash like amazing waves. It can be a tsunami. And so that introspective nature that is indicated by these archetypes is actually quite necessary to keep the seas of emotion calm. And so this these nurturers, transformers, mystics, every one of them have this incredible healing power. There is this strong empathy that is actually a huge part of their function in nature. Of course, with the nurturer, how can you be nurturing if you can't understand, the person you're trying to be nurturing to, right? The alchemist needs to understand the nature of what they're working with before they can help it transform. And alchemy is a huge process of the magic of water, I guess we could say, because alchemy is that journey of being able to let things go in order to facilitate new experiences and new ways of being. And so alchemy, it's not just the legendary lead into gold, but alchemy also very much works with our internal state as well. And it's about being able to let go of the past in order to have new ways of being and new experiences and new emotions as well. And then, of course, the mystic. If you go on the internet and you Google the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, very often you're going to find them talking about the psychic nature of these signs. And there absolutely is a intuitive connection to these archetypes, and that is very much powered by their empathic natures. Water is an element that is very accepting of things external to it. And so these archetypes have that ability to gauge a room and the people in it as well, so that they can understand the essence of what is happening around them. And that power can also sometimes be a bit of a double-edged sword because they can also be influenced by the thoughts and emotions and state of things outside of themselves. And that introspective nature that I spoke about earlier is actually quite essential to these watery archetypes because when they don't have the time to sit down and go into that introspective place and sort out what belongs to them and what doesn't belong to them, they can find that they're in a bit of a chaotic emotional state because they're trying to incorporate many thoughts, opinions, and emotions from outside of themselves and come to a singular point of action. And so taking time for that introspection is very important for these watery archetypes. Now, why do archetypes matter? This was a question that was asked to me a while ago. And the very first thing that I tell people is that part of it is about self-awareness. So if you've ever had conflicting priorities or conflicting aspects of your character, ultimately that derives back to conflicting archetypes within your own nature. As I mentioned to you earlier, every one of us has multiple archetypes within us. And when we experience that conflict, it's because the needs or priorities or desires of those archetypes are in conflict. Now, it's not just that we can experience that conflict within ourselves. Of course, that can be externalized. In astrology, we talk about the archetypes within ourselves. We talk about the archetypes of ourselves, in relationship to the archetypes of others. And then we have the archetype of the self and the archetypes of society. And so, in your personal life, generally it's those first two that matter, the archetypes within the self and your archetypal nature, and the archetypal nature of your loved ones. And when you have a better understanding of the archetypal nature of the people that you love, or the people you even work with, even, um, you can begin to appreciate their strengths, their perspectives, their areas of wisdom, and to also be able to apply that within yourself. Knowing these dominant archetypes is what gives you a sense of purpose. It gives you traits, skills, abilities, areas that you can grow and develop into. And you also have the ability to truly appreciate what other people bring to the table. When you have differing archetypes in your lives, say for example that you're more of a watery archetype. Let's say you're a Pisces and you're more of that mystic kind of nature. Well, that mystical nature isn't always grounded and practical. And so that's when you might begin to appreciate those earthy signs in your life, who are the builders, the strategists, who help keep you grounded and remind you that there are things in your life, tangible things that actually matter, and vice versa. You might serve as that inspiration to them that they need to have a higher purpose other than the material world, or that they need to take that time for introspection themselves and to go through that journey of self-discovery and see how they feel, because those earthy archetypes often put off their own feelings in favor of accomplishment. And so when we learn how to synthesize these archetypes together, that is when we truly cultivate appreciation within ourselves and for the people around us. And so, if you want better relationships, if you want a better relationship with yourself, if you'd like a little less conflict and more understanding, you definitely want to journey into this archetypal realm, because then you will not only cultivate an understanding, but you will truly begin to appreciate the nature of what is in front of you. Because if any singular nature was perfect, then the world would just be filled with one nature. And I don't know about you, but I certainly appreciate all the archetypes around me, and I appreciate them for the wisdom and the things that they bring to the table. And so the big question is, how do you get to know these archetypes? And so within astrology, that is where your natal chart comes into play. Because as I mentioned to you, no one of us is a singular archetype. And when you look at the natal chart, it gives you the opportunity to understand what are the archetypes at play. And for those of you, if you've ever heard the term, who are cusp babies, meaning that you were born towards the very beginning or the very end of a zodiac sign, a lot of times you often don't resonate with your sign, and there's actually good reason for that. There are certain planets that are tied into the sun's motion. And they're never more than a certain number of degrees away from the sun, Mercury and Venus being those two planets. And when when we're born, wherever the sun is, yes, Mercury and Venus are close by, but there could be many other things transiting other zodiac signs, bringing in other elements and other archetypal energies. And so when you look at the natal chart, it actually gives you a higher perspective, not only on the archetypes that are within you, but also how they are relating. Because you could have two complementary archetypes, and yet perhaps there could be some form of conflict between them. Certain archetypes are friends in astrology, and others are considered to be nemesis. And so when we look at the natal chart, that gives us the ability to have a higher perspective and also to cultivate greater peace and coherency between them. And so, if you're more interested in exploring these archetypal natures, whether it's for yourself or perhaps you have a friend or a family member or a partner who you're having trouble seeing eye to eye with, right? That can often result from having different archetypal natures that you don't fully understand yet. I would absolutely encourage you to go and have your natal chart read. That's going to give you the insight that you need into the function of those archetypes and also how to support the ones that are looking for greater support, right? You know, that part of yourself that has been seeking expression for so long, and also how to mitigate some of the challenges of the major archetype. Because we all have our challenges that we go through in life. You know, as I mentioned to you earlier, we all come in with a perfect nature and we're trying to adapt it to an imperfect world. And so that involves some learning and growth along the way. And so if you find that you're coming across major obstacles within yourself, it's also time to look at your natal chart and see if there are other archetypes that can step in to bolster and support that part of yourself, or if there are lessons and things that you can do along the way so that you can overcome those challenges and ultimately triumph.
Aleksandra Ceho, everybody. Absolutely. That was magnificent. That really was. I love what you did there. And man, I learned a lot just sitting there listening to it all. Thank you for coming and doing that talk, first of all. I really appreciate you doing that.
Oh, thank you. It was an honor, Rory. Thank you for having me.
Oh, not at all. Can I ask you a couple questions about your talk as we want to? Is that all
Absolutely.
right? As
Yeah.
I've heard of the Earth, sorry, the different elemental signs before,
Yeah.
and so I kind of knew, I guess, that they were like fire, earth, water. Air is the one I always forget. And I know, of course, my own zodiac and of my kids. I never put together that all three of my kids are Earth signs, and
Oh, amazing.
and so
Now what's yours?
I'm a fire sign. Mine's Aries. And
Yes.
and then I have two Tauruses and a Virgo for kids. And my
And
wife is an air sign. So
yes.
I'm putting this all together in my head going, hmm, think this explains everything that happened this past weekend. But anyway,
Well, it's kind of interesting because air and fire are both fast.
okay.
And so they like to get things done. And so there's a certain urgency to them that Taurus, sometimes Virgo has some of that urgency because it is ruled by Mercury, but Tauruses like to do things steady and when they're ready.
Hmm.
Now, when they're ready may not match when you're ready.
Wow. Wow. Really amazing how accurate this stuff gets.
You know, I've studied the parables of nature for a long time because when you look at the four elements, even in the world around you, and you come to understand it, like I said, it helps you to understand the innate essence of others. And like you, I have a Taurus partner. So you have Taurus children, I have a Taurus partner. And one of the things that I truly appreciate about it, for example, the element of earth, is that they are diligent and they can have discipline. Now, do they also have aspects of sensuality and loving the abundance of the earth? Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, Taurus is our king of the nap or queen of the nap.
Oh, that's so perfect. Oh my goodness. That's funny. My oldest, who's a daughter, and my youngest, who's my son, they're both Taurus. And yeah, my middle son is a Virgo, and I'm kind of like, okay, what am I learning from this? Taurus sounds a little like stubborn. Am I getting that right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, if you think of the earth, it takes a lot of effort to change Earth.
Yeah. Okay.
So I live here in Toronto. 10,000 years ago, there were glaciers sitting on top of the earth, and it created the Great Lakes and it depressed the earth. And 10,000 years later, the earth is still slowly rebounding. So it took a lot of pressure to change it, and it took a lot of time and like I said, it's still rebounding 10,000 years later.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you, because like I said, that was incredibly interesting to be able to sit here and have a front row seat for that great talk. Now, you obviously have done this before. I think you said that you have taught classes and been up in front of people delivering this. What speaking have you done, and where would you like to go with it?
Oh my goodness. Well, so I have been teaching with the Modern Mystery School for about 15 years now. It's been quite a while, actually. And astrology is my main passion. And in today's social media, especially, it's been turned into a bit of a joke or humor or personality typology. And it's actually a lot more nuanced than that. One of the things that people don't realize is that for hundreds of years, royalty, statesmen, politicians, kings, queens, they actually consulted astrologers to help them understand themselves, their talents, their abilities, what they were able to do. But they also consulted the astrologer to help them understand worldly patterns. And so astrology applies to us as individuals, but it also applies to greater society. And so, for example, the transits or movements of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto very much influence our culture, our politics, social upheavals, transformations, that kind of thing. And so I'd actually like to bring astrology back to that realm. So instead of discovering how you get drunk as a zodiac sign, really
Hmm.
learning how to know thyself, which is the beginning and ending of all spiritual work and processes, so that you can use astrology as a tool to take yourself deeper. So where do I hope to go? I'd like to take that message to the world. I'd
Nice.
like to change the complete discourse on astrology. And so I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, especially healthcare practitioners, especially doctors, chiropractors, lawyers.
Hmm.
You'd be
All right.
surprised at who values astrology. Ivy League professors. I have Ivy League
Nice.
professors as clients. And so all of these people, have done that work of trying to know themselves in order to move forward either in their career or pursue their purpose.
Nice.
And so I'd like to take that message out to the world. So where do I hope to go? amazing places and meet amazing people and share amazing things.
Nice. I absolutely can see you doing that. So I love it. The now you are offering an ebook out to folks.
Yes,
Tell us about that.
absolutely.
Yeah. Tell us about that and how they can get it.
Oh, yeah. So, star powered resilience. This was, I've been studying astrology for, almost 35 years at this point. And so I wanted to bring astrology back into the world of business and performance. And so Star Powered Resilience is a short little ebook that actually works with the 12 zodiac signs, helping you to understand your gifts, talents, and abilities and what you have to bring to the table. And also how your own nature can present itself as an obstacle and how that creates stress and how to overcome that. And so within the book are little remedies, little rituals, and reminders, as well as journal prompts, so that you can mitigate stress in order to perform at your highest. And a quick little tip for that book, because you can read it from the perspective of your zodiac sign, but you could also, if you go look up your natal chart and you find out where Mercury and Mars are, I always tell people read the sign that Mercury is in and read the sign that Mars is in, because Mercury tells you about the mental capacities of your work and what traits your mentality brings to the table. And Mars is the planet of both stress and resilience. And so getting to know the sign that Mars is in star powered resilience will also give you insight into your action archetype and how it functions and how you can
Hmm.
support yourself in that way as well.
Wow. Okay, that's
And so
fascinating.
you can go to astrologerroyale.com and in the About Me section, there's a little more about myself, and you will find Star Powered Resilience there to download.
Nice. Nice. Love it. We'll make sure we have those links in the show notes. Love this. Absolutely love it. And for anybody who wants to contact you about any of this stuff personally, if they want to contact you about, getting a reading from you, if they want to contact you about being on a stage in the future, how do they reach Aleksandra Ceho?
Well, first of all, I would be honored to serve anyone, and so they can find me at astrologerroyale.com. They can also find me on Instagram at Pallas, Pallas dot Alex, Aleks.
Got it.
And
Okay.
they can also send me an email, Alex, Aleks, at masterthestars.com.
Beautiful. Masterthestars.com. All right, we got it. We'll make sure that that's in the show notes for you. Any parting words of wisdom or last minute thoughts for anybody who's listening to this about you and what you do?
Well, I'll leave you with a secret. This is an astrological secret. Whatever your greatest challenge in life is, whatever you consider to be your biggest personal failing, the thing you judge yourself the most for, the secret about that is that it's actually a strength. And when you learn how to manage that part of yourself, how to support it the right way, how to apply it the right way, you will discover an incredible gift. And so anything that you consider to be your ball and chain, your source of shame, your biggest stumbling block can literally become your rocket pack. And when you look into the power of your natal chart and understand the archetype behind it, that's when all of that can change. And that biggest stumbling block can become literally a V8 engine.
Nice. Great parting thought. Love it. Folks, Aleksandra Ceho, thank you for being on today and delivering your talk. It was absolutely magnificent. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Rory.
Folks, this has been another spectacular episode of Step Up to the Mic. If you are an aspiring or current speaker and you want to bring your talk to the masses, directly to the listeners, message us today. Never stop talking. And at some point, you got to step up to the mic.